In this video, we're going to learn how to solve Cramer's rule for 3 equations containing 3 variables. But I wanted to show this again because if you understand this, you're going to understand it when we go to three equations with 3 variables. It's just this on a bigger scale. So my x was d sub x over d, my y was d sub y over d. My d was what was the coefficients with my x and y. And then for d sub x, I replaced my x column with what the equation equaled. And for d sub y, I replaced my y column with what this equaled. This is the exact same thing. Take a moment to pause this video and write this down. And on your paper, okay, it looks kind of like this, right? Since it's on half sheet. So take the top half of example 5 and write this down. And then you're going to want to write this down on example 6. You have that whole space to write both of these down. But for Cramer's rule for 3 variables, it's the same thing. You have your equation here. So your x's are variables, your y's are variables, your z's are variables, but everything else is a number. X equals the same thing, d sub x over d. Y is the same thing, d sub y over d. And z is then, following the same pattern, d sub z over d. So we will have to determine what does d equal, d sub x, d sub y, and d sub z equal. It's the same as on a 2 though. For your d, okay, and this is what's going above example 6. So pause the video, write that down. Okay, but your d is what your coefficients are in front of your x, y, and z. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I for your d. So then for d sub x, because this is x, I am taking my x column here and I am replacing it with what this equation equals. So then my y column stays the same and my z column stay the same. For d sub y, now this is y, I'm taking my y column here and I am replacing my y with what this equation equals. But now my x column is the same as my d and my z column is the same as my d. And then lastly, for d sub z, you're going to take the z column and replace it with what this equation equals. But your x column is the same and your y column is the same from your d. Okay, so let's apply this. So use Cramer's rule to solve the following system. So we need to figure out what is d, what is d sub x, d sub y, and d sub z. For my d, it is my x, my y, and my z column. So this is 1, 2, 5 for x. -1, -3, 1. 1, 4, -2. And so there is d. Now there's actually a way to put this in our calculator, and that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, let's go ahead and just write what our determinant looks like for d sub x, y, and z. So d sub x I am replacing this X column with what my equations equal. So this is 4, -15, and 12. And then my Y column stays the same. And my Z column stays the same. Okay, D sub Y. Because this is Y, I'm going to replace my Y column with what this equation equals. So -4, -15, and 12. And now my X column stays the same. And my Z column stays the same. And let's see if I can squeeze D sub Z in here. Now this is Z, so I'm going to replace my Z column with, again, what this equation equals. So -4, -15, and 12. My X column will still be 1, 2, 5, and my Y column will stay -1, -3, 1. Okay. Let's put this in our calculator. Okay, so we're going to do this similar to our RREF. I'm going to go second matrix, and I'm going to scroll over to edit, and I always edit matrix A. If I want to put in D, I'm going to have a 3 by 3 determinant. So enter in your determinant. Okay, again, before you get out of this, check to make sure it matches. You don't want to get it wrong because you accidentally entered in the wrong key. So I have 1, 2, 5, -1, -3, 1, and 1, 4, -2. So I am good. I'm going to hit second quit to get out of there. So go back into second matrix, edit over to math. And number 1, this is exactly what we want. The DET stands for determinant. So hit enter and then go second matrix to grab your matrix A and hit enter. So this equals 5. Okay, let's do it again for D sub X. Go second matrix over here to edit. It is still 3 by 3. And now I need to replace my first column with what we replaced it with. Everything else is the same. So I got -4, enter, enter, enter. -15, enter, enter, enter. And 12. And then I'm just going to check it. And I look like I am not good. This changed to a -2. Oh, it should be -2. I have it wrong here. Okay, so make sure you put that -2 here because that's what that is there. Okay, so we are good. So I'm going to hit second quit. Because I already have this up here, now I can just arrow up and grab it. This one happens to be -5 as well. So let's edit this again to get our D sub Y. So second matrix, edit over to edit, or arrow over to edit. And now I need to change my first column back and change my middle column. So I have 1, -4, the 1's good. 2, this should now be -15, 4's good. 5, 12, -2 is good. So I'm going to check it again. I like what I see. I'm going to hit second quit. I'm going to arrow up and grab my determinant A, and we get -15. And let's do it one more time to get B sub Z. So second matrix, over here to edit. My first column's good, but I need to change my middle column back and change my third column. So the 1 is good. We're going to go to -1 here. Right there, I like that one. Okay, I'm going to check it real quick. Okay, I like it. So second quit. And I'm going to come back up here to determinant A, and we get 10. Okay. If you don't already have this determinant up here, after you edit it, you can go second matrix over here to math. We want determinant, and we'll go second matrix to grab matrix A. Right? If you did not understand how to get these with your calculator, you're either going to have to do it by hand, or you need to rewind this video and make sure you understand how to enter it in on here. Now that I have my D, my dx, my dy, and my dz, now I can figure out what x, y, and z are. So my x equals dx over d, which is -5 over -5, so 1. Y equals d sub y over d. So we get -15 over -5, which is 3. And then z is d sub z over d, which is 10 over -5 to give me -2. So my final answer needs to be in an ordered pair, x, comma, y, comma, z. So this is 1, 3, -2.